Thanks for listening to this review for our final exam. Here are the directions for the final. It's just like the midterm. Part of the test will be statements about style characteristics, and your job is to find the answer that is false. And the other part is image identification. It's important to remember to use the key, to write the key down, have it beside you, and do not write out your answer, because if you do and you misspell it, Canvas will mark your response incorrect. So what you want to do is use a letter. And here you can see the letters that correspond with the styles that will be on our final exam. You could set your computer to caps lock, and then you can put the letter in, and basically you'll be all set and ready to go. Make sure to check your answers. Don't write it out, but use a capital letter and no period. So the first style we're going to talk about is Placket Steel, and as you know by now, location can be a helpful clue when you're looking at a piece of design, because there may be typography, language, or visual clues that tell you where it's coming from. And Placket Steel hails from Germany. So it's characterized by a flat background color, a dominant stylized image, and the name of the product. It's fairly simple. When we look at Placket Steel type, it might be very clean like the one on the left, but we definitely see a bit of design to it. On the right, we see that classic black letter type, because many of these pieces are war posters. So that's a huge clue for you typographically if you're looking at Placket Steel. Art Deco hails from France and the United States, and it's characterized by the zigzag line, geometric shapes, a machine aesthetic. We see streamline, as in this image by A.M. Cassandra, and we see converging lines. There's eclecticism and international motifs such as Assyrian, American Indian, or Greek. Art Deco type may often be found on a poster, or we can see individual fonts such as Byfer, created by Cassandra to the right. Now, suprematism constructivism is from the Soviet Union, and this is a huge clue because you might see that Cyrillic alphabet, and it's going to tell you very clearly what style it is. Both of these are in the same category on the final exam, and suprematism is non-representational, like the image at the top, pure colors, basic geometric shapes. The lettering could look Soviet influenced if there is typography in it, and it often uses red and black on a beige colored background. It might just look like a piece of art, like modern art with shapes. And if so, more than likely it's going to be suprematism, because we don't have that influence of modern art chapter on our final exam. So keep that in mind. Constructivism has geometric shapes, asymmetry, diagonal lines like you see in this shout in the Rodchenko piece below. And lettering looks Soviet influenced, often uses red and black on a beige colored background. So constructivism differs from suprematism because we'll see recognizable imagery in it. The typography, as I mentioned, is that Cyrillic alphabet, which is a dead giveaway that you're looking at this particular style. Now, de stijl comes from the Netherlands, and it's characterized by asymmetry, primary colors with neutrals, black, white, and gray, and perpendicular lines, horizontals and verticals. Even though this piece says Bauhaus in it, don't be confused. Look at those colors with neutrals. So it's a great example, or a piece by Piet Mondrian. Here is an example of de style type. So take a look at like the clean style that we have, and it could be a clue for you. In this piece, it even says de style in it. Now, the Bauhaus and new typography are one category, and it comes from Germany. So we're going to see a lot of posters that might even say Bauhaus in them, like this. We see sans serif asymmetrical type, which is the new typography. It's about delivering a message and communicating, functioning, not decorative like we did in Art Deco. Purity, clarity, simplicity, as well as new approaches to photography, like extreme scale contrasts, like a bird flying above you or a worm crawling below. When you see that photography and that extreme scale, it's a good clue. And montage was popular. The new typography is asymmetrical, flush left, ragged right, where a priority is assigned to the text based on the weight and the size. Again, the purpose of communication is to function, not decorate. Type is very simple without embellishment, and rules may be used for emphasis. So when we look at typography from this period, it might look like this. Very clean, very clear, sans serif, straightforward, flush left, ragged right. All of these are great clues. The modern movement in America comes from the United States. We see that Bauhaus influence, but the content is decidedly American. We have WPA typography. What's that mean? Works Progress Administration. This is in the time of the Great Depression. So if you'll remember, Franklin Delano Roosevelt in his New Deal tried to make a lot of jobs for unemployed artists and actors, and basically developed a lot of work around fine artists and artists who created posters for social programs like the Rural Electrification Administration that we see here. Now, the typography from this period has a distinctive look. You might see it in national park posters or WPA pieces, or this wonderful piece that looks sort of Bauhaus for sure, but instead it says New York World's Fair. So we know we're looking at the modern movement in America. The international typographic style hails from Switzerland and Germany. We've got asymmetry, flush left, ragged right layouts, sans serif letters with bold words for emphasis. It's reductive, it's objective, it doesn't present a point of view. There is absolutely no superfluous decoration. And the grid, that's a huge clue. The grid is clearly evident in this work. Here's some examples of ITS type. ITS is short for the International Typographic Style. It's often Helvetica. It's flush left, ragged right. It's extremely clean. It's on a grid. The New York School is the United States, and it's a uniquely American approach with origins in European modernism, but it's playful. It's visually dynamic and totally unexpected. It's analyzing the communications content, reducing it to the symbolic essence, and the use of shape is a huge clue for this style, which is one of the more difficult ones to split from things like conceptual image. So remember shape. Do you see how important shape is in both of these pieces? Like in The Man with the Golden Arm, that shape is so very critical to the layout. On the left, the piece by Paul Rand, the barbed wire even has a drop shadow, and the shape of that is very telling. It's also unexpected. It's on the cover of a magazine about Christmas, but the package is wrapped up in barbed wire. What's that doing there? So that's the visually dynamic and unexpected part of the New York school. Typography can look like this. We might see a lot of film posters by Paul Rand on the left, Saul Bass on the right, and that can be a clue for us. Next, we have the corporate identity and visual systems, which comes from Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and the United States. So you know what a corporate logo is. Branding is so big here in our country. When it looks like a corporate logo or it's a pictograph, we know that we are looking at this chapter, Corporate ID and Visual Systems. Corporate identity type is likewise very clean. And again, the Olympics is a very big theme throughout that chapter. Conceptual image comes from 4 countries: Poland, the United States, Germany, and Cuba. So this could be a big clue if it's in Polish, which you probably can't read, but maybe you can, or it's in Spanish. We've got a very good clue because there aren't any other styles that do that in this chapter. You will find narrative information communicated with ideas and concepts. Ideas and concepts are everything. When you look at a piece like this one, which is about apartheid, we look at it and we say, wow, that blood stain is in the shape of the continent of Africa. What a conceptual way to talk about apartheid. And we see the familiar, the continent of Africa, in an unfamiliar setting on this bandage. And we see scale changes, substitution, visual, puns, and play. Illustration is also very big in this style. When we see the typography, it might look something like this. It could have a very illustrative quality to it. Now we move to the digital revolution, which is coupled with postmodern design on the exam. And this is computer-generated imagery, the internet, interactive design, and the World Wide Web. And the typography might look pixelated in the early days of computers. They had to embrace this, and so they did. Postmodern design, on the other hand, we see advances in computers, but the type is really, really dynamic and used in incredible ways. There are 3 parts to postmodernism: deconstruction, new wave, and retro vernacular. Deconstruction broke with the international typographic style communications. It was intuitive. It communicated emotional qualities with really expressive type. There's layering and overlapping, and it uses computers to generate layouts and type. New Wave has stair-step rules. We see some evidence of the grid, layering, overlapping. It's created on a computer, simultaneity. And then retro vernacular, don't let it fool you. It looks like the past, but we can tell it's more current. We see eclectic modernist European design of the first half of the century, but there's a disrespect for the proper rules of typography. It's placed in new ways. The kinky mannered type of the 20s and 30s is popular. So here on the left, we see a good example of those styles. This is deconstruction on the left, and we see new wave in the middle on those stair-stepped rules. And then on the right, we see retro. This looks like a piece that's paying tribute to suprematism and constructivism, but clearly the type is in English, so it is not. And so this is a piece that is retro. Again, the digital revolution and postmodern design will be grouped together on your exam.